Yes, I think my brother is experiencing network issues, but let's go ahead and pray. I will pray in my local language, is called Kinyarwanda. Uwiteka Mana nziza, gitare cy'amahanga, twongeye kuza imbere y'ubwiza bwawe, turagushimira ko wakomeje kubana natwe, turakwinginze ngo ukomeze uturinde, abe ariwe twigaragariza mu byo turi gukora byose, ubiduheremo umugisha, tubisabe twiyambaje mu izina rya Yesu Kristo, amen. Yes, welcome everyone that joined the call today. My name is Dushime Yvonne, and I'm currently in London. And we're going to have our lead developer, Alex Wafula, explaining and giving updates about the I Love Black People Safe Places app. Alex, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, Yvonne. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Yeah, thank you for getting me on. Yeah, so for those of you who might not know me, my name is Alex Wafula. I'm the lead developer of Black people. So basically, I'm responsible for basically take some time to talk about the updates we're having with the I Love Black People Safe Places app and the feedback we've been receiving from our community over the past couple of weeks, 2 months now, I think, since we launched the app. All right, so for those of you who might not be familiar with the app, we have an app on the iOS and Android stores called I Love Black People Safe Places app. And I think I will be able to share a link for that app. In case you haven't downloaded it, I'll recommend you go ahead and download it and check it. Again, if you haven't used it, we are basically using the app to leverage the community we have to identify safe places for Black people. So these are places that don't have like racial tendencies or are not xenophobic. And the whole idea is for us to create enough capacity to be able to protect people from Black people from racial profiling. So in essence, once you download the app, you're going to be prompted to recommend businesses that are safe for Black people. So the whole idea is, imagine if you go to this shoe store and you like it, they've been giving you, you've been buying shoes at this place for years, you haven't had any problems with the place. You'd essentially, if somebody came to you and asked you, like, where could I get, where should I go and get good shoes? You'll probably like recommend this place, right? Because you have previous experience buying from this shop. So in essence, with the app, what we need you to recommend are places that you've already visited and used before. And as a Black person, you feel that you feel like you're being treated with respect and dignity in this place. So if you're in your neighborhood, you've gone to a barber shop, to a hospital, if this place treated you with dignity and respect as a Black person, like that's the kind of place we are looking for people to recommend on the app. So once we get enough recommendations and basically have them reviewed, we are going to present this platform as a place where you can go to open and say, okay, I'm in Kigali today. Maybe it's my first time there. I like to know I can sleep or know I can eat, and that it's safe for me as a Black person. I should, in essence, be able to use this app to find businesses that have been recommended by fellow Black people as Black friendly. So we are not there yet right now. That's why we really need a lot of help and support from you, the community, to recommend businesses right now. Because right now we are not able to display those safe places because we don't have them yet. So in essence, the whole purpose of the app right now is to get you, the community, to recommend those safe places, right? Yeah, then in terms of updates, I think we've had an update around having notifications working better on the app. So basically something we noticed is that you might be at a Black friendly place, but you really don't remember to sort of open your app and recommend this place. So what we do with the app right now is we send you notifications based on where you are, and we'll be like, okay, we see you're in this cafe or you're at this restaurant, based on your experience there right now, is this place Black friendly? And based on that notification, you're able to actually recommend, or if you felt the place was not Black, you just skip the place, like kind of ignore it, because we really want to only deal with Black friendly places, right? So that's one major update we've done. We've been tweaking that notification experience so that whenever you're moving, we kind of try and send you reminders. Hey, I see you've settled at that place. Can you like give us feedback about businesses in that area that you've been able to visit? So like that's one major update we've done, and we really love to get feedback from folks using both Android and iOS. You can get either in touch with me directly with the word, or if you're in our WhatsApp groups, you can get in touch there as well, or send us an email that is to info@ILoveBlackPeople.com with your experience with the notification feature so far. Like, so the feedback can be like, are you getting notifications in the first place? If you're not, we'd love to hear from you. And like, I'll say you mentioned the notifications feature, but I'm not getting any. Like, are the notifications relevant? Maybe are you actually seeing that restaurant as part of the notification, or you're at a barber shop, are you seeing it as part of the notification? So like basically just let us know how it's working for you, whether there are any changes or improvements you think makes sense for it. Because like I mentioned, like we are really early in the development of this application, and we expect a lot of things not to work, or towards you, the community, to get that kind of feedback. Then the other update that we made was to increase the amount of time that the app allows you to be logged in. So like one of the complaints we got from the community was that you kept getting asked to log in whenever you close the app. So what we've done is we've increased the amount of time that the app lets you stay on the phone, on the, like, access the application without having to log in back again. So again, with that, we'll up to 3 months where you don't need, like if you log in today, you won't need to log in again for like 3 months or so. So do let us know if that's working for you. If you're still having issues with the login process, if the app keeps asking you to log in, do let us know. Again, you can send us an email to info@ILoveBlackPeople.com. Reach out to our, if you're in any of our WhatsApp groups, let us know. Also, if yeah, you can also reach out to me directly through the WhatsApp groups, right? Yeah, so I think those are the two major updates, and like there's one big update we are making with the login process. So basically making the sign up or login process way easier. And we also have new screens that basically explain how the app works. So we'll be rolling that out in the near future. So we'll also be looking for feedback in terms of the onboarding process. Like, is it easy for you to sign up? Is it easy for you to get started? Like, if you got in on the app today, does it work as expected, right? So that's the other major feature we're going to launch soon, like a new onboarding process for new people, and also for people who've been using the app already. Howard, I don't know, up till this point, do you have any questions from I'm sorry, I see there's somebody who's sharing their screen. Howard, Yvonne?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I was saying I see there's someone, I think somebody's sharing their screen.
Right.
Yes, let me remove it.
Okay.
Yes, Alex, I can see there are no questions available both on Facebook and here on Zoom. So if you do have any questions, kindly write in the comment section on Facebook about our application. And if you haven't downloaded it yet, check the description. You can see the links both for Android and iOS. On Zoom, we have shared the links on the chat room. You can check out for the links as well. So if you do have any questions, you can write them in the chat room or in the comment section. They will be answered in our WhatsApp group or responded there from Facebook, it will be responded directly in the comment section, and here on Zoom, it will be attended to as well, whilst our lead developer is still around. And also, if you missed the part whereby the lead developer updated us about the updates on the app, and make sure that your application is updated, you can visit your Apple App Store or Google Play Store to make sure that the application is updated so that you can start receiving notifications, and as well as to log in once. It might ask you to log in again, but we're still checking it. So make sure that you log in, then you check if you have been logged out. So keep on recommending places so that you can know that you are still logged in through the application.
All right. So I was listening out. I guess maybe if there are no questions, I'm thinking if there are no questions, I think that's all I had for today.
All right. Thank you so much. With us, we are joined with our co-founder, Mr. Christopher Mapondera. So let's all welcome him. He's going to give us a speech. He's currently residing in America at the moment. So Mr. Mapondera, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you pretty good. Can you hear me too?
Yes, we can hear you and see you clearly. You can go ahead and lead us.
Okay, that's good. Anyway, thank you so much. I welcome everybody. Say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's always a pleasure to come and speak to you. I look forward to every Saturday, and I'm available or possible for me to do so. As I always say, that Pan-Africanism is not a concept that operates in a vacuum. I try to make it as relevant as possible, so that you can understand the full impact of what Pan-Africanism is all about, and that it is not a stagnant concept, something that is constantly evolving. When our forefathers thought of this concept, well, at one point it was more or less a theoretical thing because it was started or put into place by people who were all under colonialism, people who were very much disenfranchised, talking about, African states was kind of a pipe dream at the time. Nobody ever thought that the colonialists would ever leave the continent or that would have the level of freedom that we have today as an African people, particularly as it concerns the African continent. The majority of our people who are still in the diaspora are not as free as we would like them to be. They are still under a lot of subjugation. They're still under a lot of racism, discrimination, oppression. So we feel, that as Pan-Africanism transforms, people start changing their mindset, that you don't look at yourself strictly in the context of where your ancestors were brought to. Look at yourself in the context of being a Brazilian, rather than look at yourself as an African, and that the African continent is your home. You should not feel logged into thinking that is being an Afro-Mexican, that is the end of it all. If you get sick and tired of it, you always have a refugee in Africa. Today I wanted to talk about two things. One is the East African Federation. This concept has been on for quite some time. And in 2018, a commission was made to see how this can actually be actualized. Now, the difference between what the AU stands for and the various regional groupings are, and what the East African Federation is that all these other regional groupings were based on very loose relationships. They still emphasized, the national identity. They were trying to also find ways in which they could be common objectives, but still remain as individual units. But the difference with the East African Federation, which is different from what we have in Africa so far, is that you've got initially 7 states that decided they're going to form a federation. And what that means is that you can still be Rwandan, but also at the same time, you've got a common identity of being part of the East African Federation. We had a federal type system before, which involved then Northern Rhodesia, Southern Rhodesia, and the Nyasaland, which was Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi today. But that federation was created for the purposes of meeting the needs of the British colonizers. The administration was in Zimbabwe, but there was little distribution of power to the other provinces. But this had been done for the convenience of the British government, that there was a better coordination of its activities in those 3 countries. Now, with the new proposed East African Federation, is that they would look into having a common government. It's just like what you have here in the United States, where you've got the federal government, but you've got the individual states, that have their own governor, who is like the head of the state. Now, in Africa, I don't know what the final outcome would be, but also at the same time, you'd have a situation where each country has got its administration, but there would also be a common administration that ties all the other countries. I have hope, that this will succeed for one major reason, that the current leaders you have in those states, they are really true Pan-Africanists in a way, that they don't adhere or recognize the importance of the colonial boundaries. Because this is the one thing that was a big hang-up for most of us, that we tried to maintain the colonial boundaries for the sake of political expediency, because even though those boundaries, cut across groups of people, that at the end of the day, you find that one part of the family is in Zimbabwe and the other part is in Mozambique because of those arbitrary lines. You have to, President Uhuru Kenyatta, I listened to him not too long ago, where he was really going into detail as to why they should not continue to recognize the artificial boundaries. They are not a creation of the African people. And President Kagame, the President Malawi, and the new crop of African leaders, they are less and less inclined to try and make those artificial boundaries, be as solid as the products want them to be. And that is the only way this thing can succeed. That, okay, psychologically, it may take some time to get rid of those artificial boundaries. But also at the same time, if we move towards the process, of saying, okay, we're all one people, the boundaries, yes, they may be, but let's have common objectives. And if you have a federal system, it means you'd have like a common path. You don't need a passport to travel from Rwanda to go to Kenya, or you need a passport, from Kenya to go to Uganda, or from DRC to go to South Sudan. You'll be able to travel easily, in between those states. And this is the concept, that the whole Africa free trade, area is continental free trade area is all about, in terms of setting up common services, open space, the skies, that if you have Air Rwanda can fly to any part of Africa without restrictions, or Ethiopian Airlines, Kenya Airlines, and all that. So that was quite an important development, and from the way I see it, that it has all the elements of becoming successful, simply because now less inclined to want to continue to propagate the old colonial boundaries. They're now motivated by economic and social factors, that, to try and, look at yourself as an individual country does not do you any good, except if you as I mentioned last time, and if you look at what is happening in Africa today, you've got several blocks that have been created, and most of those have been emphasizing more on the economic side of things. But to move things much faster, you also need to integrate the political aspect of your integration. So I think this will set up a good example, so that at the end of the day, you end up with one federation of the whole of Africa. And then hopefully the next generation can now say, okay, no more federation, no more individual states, but just one Africa, one people, and that is that. So we have been patient enough for the last, 100 years, to see this transformation taking place. So I'm sure we can still be patient enough to allow the kind of evolution that is taking place now. Okay, so that is that issue of the East African Federation, in the sense that I'm saying it's a concept that is now being developed. And what I like about it is that it fosters a level of political unity and still identify the individual states. But as you know, most of its so-called states, they were really a conglomeration of various kingdoms, various ethnic groups who were nations on their own. If you take the Kikuyu, you can take the Zulu, you can take the Tonga, whatever. Before the colonial time, these were nations in their own right, So to unify before the colonialists came in, all these various groups were already communicating with each other. They all knew about each other's existence because they all, faced, common conditions, disaster. If there was a famine or hunger in one part of the area, people knew, that, okay, in this area that we call that today, there's famine, but they also know that in the place that we call Tanzania today, there's a plenty of food there. And so there would be a crisscrossing, visiting each other, or going to rely on each other and so forth. So the concept of integration and communication between us is not something that is new to us. It's something that had already been going on. It was only disrupted by the intervention of the colonial people. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the impact of the Ukrainian war. I've read quite a few articles and people making commentaries that, Africa is going to suffer more than anybody else on the impact and the effect of the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. But the most interesting thing about it, why should Africa be the victim of that war? For the most part, we have said, look, we have nothing to do with it. It's amongst yourselves. In African proverbs says, where two elephants fight, it's the grass that's going to suffer. So in this case, really the war is between the West and the East, or the Russia and NATO. That is really, Ukraine become a kind of a proxy in this war here. So for us to be identified either with the West or with Russia in this war does not make any sense at all. And for those of us who may feel, well, I have to side with this guy, Because what I have noticed is that we are being bombarded by propaganda on both sides. You really don't know what the truth is, okay? Each side can provide images of atrocities provided by one side or the other. So why should we be forced to be part and parcel of it? Okay, so, but the impact it has on us, that some of our African countries, we were relying on the wheat coming from Ukraine or Russia. We're relying on the oil coming from, Ukraine. These were Russia and Ukraine were considered the largest producers of wheat and, vegetable oils and so forth. But to me, what it signifies that as an African people, we have to start reassessing our situation. Do we really have to depend on wheat coming from Ukraine when we have got all the land in Africa? We've got other countries coming to grow wheat in Africa for their own markets. But for us to end up being victimized by the war, I don't think it makes any sense. So I think the challenge to us as an African people now says, hey, with all the land that we have, why should we not be self-reliant on the production of wheat, production of crops that help us to produce oil and so forth. So my comment here is that when they talk about Africa going to suffer the most out of the Russia-Ukraine war, I think it's just a way probably of trying to force us to take one side or the other. But it gives us the opportunity to assess our own situation, in terms of our own self-reliance on things that we were dependent on, from the European countries of Africa. So basically, these are my two items to talk about today. And if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them, or maybe some comments and so forth. But otherwise, that's all I got for today. Yvonne or
Yes.
Awad?
Yes, there is a question from Sam. They are saying, I would like to know the impact of this movement on African youth.
Which movement? I mean, the I Love Black People, or are you talking about one? Well,
I think they were talking about I Love Black People.
Well, okay. I mean, this has a huge, and it should have a huge impact on young African people, in the sense that it's a movement that is trying to integrate the African people. I mean, like on this platform, you've got guys from Malawi, from Tanzania, from Uganda, for whatever, and so forth. So as part of I Love Black People, we all look at each other as one family. So if we can expand that to as many young people as possible throughout Africa, and also in the diaspora, it makes us a very, very powerful group of people. As I indicated last time, that the scramble for Africa today is for three things. One is to harness the power that the African youth has. We've got over 600 million young people in Africa today, which makes it the largest single market on earth. Okay, so when we think disjointly, we never realize what our power is. So through I Love Black People, it provides us that uniting platform, where we all identify with each other as one. So we need to move, start looking at things from an economic point of view, from a political point of view. Right now, because of the people that are meeting on this platform, you can go to any part of Africa, you go into the I Love Black People app, and you can be able to see, oh, here's a place that was recommended, which is friendly to Black people, or here's the restaurant I can go to, or here's a So that's the impact. It just brings in more closer social cohesion amongst the African youth. When I was growing up, we didn't have that. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any opportunity of talking to someone from Kenya or from South Africa or whatever. We did not have these social platforms.
There is a comment from Pride Modzi. They're saying, yeah, true, Ukrainian war has led to what we term economic global crisis. As Africa, we are part of UN. Definitely the effects will spill over to us. I think as Africa, we lack inputs to be self-reliance. Also, our climatic conditions are not that favorable. It was a comment.
Okay, but I think the comments a little bit misleading. Africa has got the best climatic conditions of any continent on Earth. And the two, being part of the United Nations does not necessarily mean, that we have to be victimized by every event or war that is based on ideological differences between the East and the West. We just have to make use of our resources, and that is really the challenge that we have today.
Yes, those were the comments and questions that were asked. Yes, I can't see any other question. Yes, that's all.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you so much. You all have a wonderful weekend, and we meet next weekend. Take care.
All right. Thank you so much, co-founder Mr. Christopher Mapondela, for guiding us and discussing issues affecting Africa. And also for those who have participated, we thank you all with your comments and your questions. If you still have more questions, you can write in the chat section so that our co-founder can reply to you on our next session for this Pan-African meeting. Yes, as well as on Facebook, we can write in the comment section about the questions and also your contributions to discuss further on our next meeting. So lined up today, we are going to have a healthcare lecture from Nana Akua, and also the Pan-African History lecture from Dr. Tyrene Wright. So that's what we were going to have today. So is well to be safe from racism and xenophobia. We also want a healthier and safe life so that we can use our natural resources. So we're blessed that we have these natural resources here in Africa. So I can see Nana Kua has joined us. Yes, Nana Kua, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I had to unmute. Good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Hey, Yvonne. Hey, Award.
How are you?
Hi, Key. Is that my friend Haki that's on there? Hey, Haki, brother Haki. All right, that's a wonderful. All right, so greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today's topic is on herbal medicine, or actually, I think that's all we'll get a chance to deal with today. But this week 2 and 3 is divided into herbal medicine, homeopathic remedies, essential oils, and I think superfoods, but we'll see as we scroll through the handout or the lesson packet. Not a lot of people have shown me their faces, but greetings to all of you who are here, and I'm just seeing a black box. Okay, nobody else is, okay, fine. I'll deal with the black boxes with the names in them, but okay. I mean, it's okay, Haki. I see he put it back on. If you're doing something, but if you can cut it on for a second and give me a wave or something, that'd be wonderful, and go back to whatever you might be doing. I like seeing beautiful Black faces. So if you'll let me share the screen, I think I have the lesson packet up. I don't know if Award or Yvonne is controlling that. Okay, great. And I think here. Okay. All right. I think we got it. I just have to scroll back up to the top here. And so there's a lot of information in this section, but let me say, if you're in the WhatsApp group, you would have gotten this packet already. If you're not, feel free to message me and I will send you the packet. But just as just a prelude, or just some information in general about herbs. I started out being an herbalist. That's my first love. I think God is so amazing for many reasons. Mother, Father, God is amazing. And one of the many gifts is these herbs, these natural healing plants that we have been graced with, that will help us with the most minor cut or bruise through the most major critical, disease or illness, whether it be cancer or HIV or diabetes. I mean, so the whole spectrum. There are herbs that will help assist in the healing of these physical ailments, along with spiritual. There are many herbs that are used for spiritual healing. There are many herbs that are used for mental and emotional healing. And so herbs, just know this is a tool that you have to just learn about and really start to implement into your daily regimen. Just like we know about different foods to eat, and we talked about in part one, and this is week 3, right? We are on herbs. We did 2 parts of the nutrition. We split up things. I'm making sure. So I think last week or the week before, when we talked about the vitamin and mineral components of food. So just as we need to know all the different foods that are available for different nutritional value, know that there are a plethora of herbs that will contain those same vitamins and minerals, but also will heal and treat a number of different health conditions. So we need to be as familiar with herbs as we are about the different fruits and vegetables and other, food items that heal the body, mind, and the spirit. So we know that for some situations, there are contraindications for herbs. Usually this comes when a person is taking prescription drugs, because there may be some interactions there. Certainly there may be precautions in terms of how long you would take an herb, but by and large, herbs have been used for thousands and thousands of years and are very safe. And so there are many different ways in which to use herbs. You may use it as an infusion in tea form. That same infusion you may use topically in a bath or a foot bath or on the skin topically as a compress. You may use herbs in the form of a tincture or extract where you have immersed the herbs in some type of menstruum or solvent like apple cider vinegar or grain alcohol or some other kind of spirits or alcohol. It could be gin, it could be vodka, it could be the pure grain alcohol. And where you infuse it in those types of solvents to extract the potency of the herb for about 2 weeks, strain off the herb and take it internally for a more potent liquid version of herbs, as opposed to like just a tea infusion. Tea infusions we know are used with water and herbs, where you're using, maybe 20-30 minutes of steeping, an herb into the water. So tea, tinctures, or extracts, we know that we may use herbs in the form of capsules where we have ground up, usually the root parts of the herbs, but it may be other parts of the herbs, the leaves, the blossoms or flowers, the stems, in addition to the roots. But usually we've ground up dried parts of herbs and encapsulated them. So that's probably one of the easier means of doing it, or quickest means of taking herbs, is through capsules. We have a lot of topical uses of herbs where you may make it in herbal products for the hair, body, or skin. Salves, ointments, liniments, things of that nature, body powders. We know that we may use herbs as a bolus or a poultice, where you pretty much mixed dry herbs with something like, say, a shea butter or a cocoa butter, and made it into a thick paste and applied it topically. This is usually for boils or cysts or abscesses and things of that nature. So there are many uses, and there are more, but these are what come to mind very quickly. But there are many uses of herbs. And so while I'll go through some of the herbs I'd like to highlight, just know that there are many ways in which we may use them. And I like this handout here that I had gotten from a local health food store many years ago. And I just liked how it was sort of really a quick preview of what some of the herbs do. And then on the other side, in the second page, it gives you sort of a list of conditions that herbs treat. This is not the handout that I'll teach from today, however, but I wanted to just acknowledge, if you kind of want to go through and see really quickly, okay, what's good for high blood pressure, or what's good for diabetes, or what's a good diuretic, or what's good for headaches. This is sort of a really abbreviated list here. This handout I put together some years ago. So this is just sort of my little quick preview of what I think most people should have in their natural medicine chest. And so, since as an herbalist, the first few are herbs that I have listed here, I think I want to start here, and then I'll still go into some of the herbs that come from different parts of the world, so that most of us here that are watching and participating can know what areas, or maybe what herbs are indigenous to your areas. But some of my favorite herbs, and definitely this is, we know we can find ginger in Africa, in India, in China, in the Americas. So ginger is one of those that's excellent to have on hand. We know that it's an anti-inflammatory. We know that it's good for the digestive system. We can use it in capsule form. We can use it in the actual raw root form. The essential oil of ginger can, be kept on hand. That's a really easy, quick way to get rid of a fever. If you put it in a bath or a foot bath, or if you use it as a compress all over the body that has an elevated temperature, ginger is excellent for. White willow bark, this is a natural pain reliever. Probably the easiest, quickest way to get the benefits of this herb is through capsule form. So whether you're talking headache, backache, menstrual cramps, all around good pain reliever herb. Valerian, one of my favorites. This is a sedative and nervine type of herb. This is good for younger people, for pregnant women, for seniors. This is sort of a really mild but powerful herb. So also a pain reliever, good for insomnia, good for stress, tension, headaches, anxiety, things of that nature. Valerian is all around good to just kind of help calm the nerves or give a mild sedative effect. Hops, lemon balm, kava kava, these are all three very different herbs, but also sedative herbs. These I feel are useful in tea and tincture form if you are having some anxiety, some stress, whether you're trying to go to sleep or not, but if you've had a really high, intense day, or if you've had some kind of trauma-filled day where there's been some bad news or some, bad occurrences in the day. These herbs in combination or singularly are good for just kind of helping the mind and body relax. Rescue remedy or multi-flower remedy. These are flower essences that we will talk about a little later in the series. But this is a flower essence remedy, rescue remedy that has the 5 leading flower essences that are good for trauma So if you've been in an accident, or if someone has fallen ill, or you've gotten bad news of someone passing, or bad news of, I don't know, a breakup, or any traumatic event, Rescue Remedy is a flower remedy that's good to have on hand to help with the balancing of your emotions. If you're in a heightened emotional state, a flower remedy is going to be the best option. And sort of a quick go-to is Rescue Remedy 5, or if you can find a multi-flower remedy, which has all 38 of the English flower remedies in it. Another herb, peppermint. This is good to have on hand. This helps the body digest food, kind of shortens the time that food is in the stomach, and kind of assists in the digestive process. It's a good after dinner tea to consume 30 to 60 minutes after your meal. It's good to drink. It also settles the stomach. We know that the essential oil is really good for the respiratory system. I use this in my diffuser every night. I love the way that it kind of just opens up my sinuses, clears the room. It has sort of a cleansing effect in the air. So peppermint is really, really good for a number of reasons. The essential oil can be used as a cleanser in alcohol base, as a hand or air sanitizer, along with some other herbs I think are great for that: tea tree, rosemary, any of the citrus essential oils. But another thing I would suggest having in your natural medicine chest is activated charcoal. I always travel with this. This is good if you come across some food that doesn't agree with you. Whether it's actual food poison or not is not important, but if it's something that has caused some stomach upset, this helps kind of flush it out of the system. We know that this is what they use in emergency situations and even in hospitals, because it absorbs the toxins in the body. So if there's been some substance that has entered the body, or whether some bad food, activated charcoal can help neutralize those toxins. Also good for diarrhea, nausea, anything associated with coming into contact with some kind of food or substance coming into the body that's causing some upset. Activated charcoal is excellent to have on hand to neutralize that. Aloe vera juice. We know aloe vera juice externally is good for healing burns, sunburns, topical injuries, but internally it's also great. It's a mild laxative. It's good for settling the stomach. So it's good to have on hand for any internal or external uses that you may need it for. Colloidal silver, this is ionized silver. And this is a natural antibiotic. It's been used for many, many years, even before some of the present day pharmaceutical antibiotics that we know of and use. This is excellent to have on hand to boost the immune system, to fight off any kind of infections. So not just bacteria, but also viruses, parasites, yeast, any kind of disease-causing microorganism. The colloidal silver will help the body fight it off and boost the immune response. Emergency packets and children's emergency packets. And I was telling this story, I don't know if it was a week or two ago. This is also found in other parts of the world. Emergency is just the brand that's here. I don't know, and I don't remember. I was telling the story of the last time I traveled to Ghana with my younger daughter. Well, I traveled with both of them, but the younger daughter had some stomach upset, and I ended up being brought one of these packets. So it was packaged different, it was a different name, but basically this is like an electrolyte powder. So it has vitamin C in it, but it also has the trace minerals. So it kind of helps replenish you if you've kind of lost fluids from perspiration or from. So if you just need some extra vitamin C because you're boosting your immune system or fighting off a cold or a flu. So these C packets are really good to have on hand for a number of reasons. And then homeopathic kits I have listed here. This is something good to have on hand. We'll talk about homeopathy, maybe not today, maybe next week, but homeopathy is what pharmacology is based off of. And we'll get more into how it's made, but basically there are hundreds of homeopathic remedies, all natural occurring substances but not all are plant-based. Some are minerals, some are from insects and animals, but most are plant-based remedies that address different health issues and concerns. And usually they're very easy to administer. Usually in stores, they are labeled by what they do. So you may go into a homeopathic section of a store and it'll say cold and flu, or it'll say hemorrhoids, or it'll say sinus headaches or migraine headaches, and it'll be different remedies that address different conditions. But if you are building a natural medicine chest, a urgent care kit or a remedy kit that has either 50 individual remedies or 100 remedies of the homeopathy is good to have on hand, because then you can literally address pretty much any issue that you may come across. I've traveled, I've done sort of in the past, done kind of makeshift clinics in rural areas where there are various conditions going on, and there's a remedy in that box to address, whatever may, be happening. So this handout here, this is an article I had written many, many years ago. And again, highlight some of the herbs that I would recommend a lot at that time, that I personally use even to this day. And it sort of gives sort of a blurb here about the importance of herbal medicine. And the point that I'll, highlight here is that the reason to build a natural medicine chest is that we should have natural supplements, herbs on hand, instead of these over-the-counter, man-made synthetic remedies. And so the goal is for me to encourage you to replace your aspirin or Alka-Seltzer or something, with some of these natural remedies, and at least try them and start using them for these types of everyday common complaints, as opposed to running to your ibuprofen or some of these medicines that can just have long-term negative effects. Because we know that any of these over-the-counter and prescription drugs that we have to take on a ongoing regular basis, we know that it has an impact on the liver. And so for as much as we can replace or at least reduce the use of some of these types of drugs, we want to use natural herbal remedies to heal the body so that it has a softer impact on the body. And it really won't have a negative effect at all. So let me even switch that up, so that it will not only address the issue at hand, but will also give some vitamins and minerals to the body and be more nourishing and help build the body with all the other aspects that herb may, bring to the mind, body, and spirit. So for as much as we can use herbs to heal us, that's what we want to do. And that's what I promote here. So I won't go through all of these herbs that are listed here. Some we mentioned already in the natural medicine chest that I'm listed, but just know there's so many herbs that do so many wonderful things for the body. I encourage you to see which ones may resonate with you, with conditions you maybe have, conditions that maybe your family, is challenged with, and keep these things on hand. The other thing here I'd like to suggest is starting a garden. Start growing some of these herbs. Some are very easy, simple to grow. Many are perennials that will come back every year. And once you grow them, you take care of them, trim them back, prune them a bit, they'll keep coming back. Some really germinate really easily and spread all over the place. And you may have planted something like fennel in one place, and you'll find that it's popping up in other nearby areas because the seeds have kind of, flown all over the place, and they've taken root, and here another plant, starts. So a lot of these are very easy to grow, very, very easy to take care of, and you have your own natural herbal medicine chest right there in your yard. If you don't have a yard, you can grow them in pots. If you have a balcony or a porch, or even in the window in the kitchen where they can get enough sunlight. But love is the main ingredient in most things, if not all things, right? And so same with growing a garden. You can really start by simply wanting to and really putting your all and your best, most positive energy into growing these healing foods. And then I think, again, that just gives us a little more power back. You know, when we can provide our own food, our own medicine, I think we're unstoppable. So as we continue to fight for fairness is not a word I usually use, but as long as we're fighting for our rights and we're fighting against things that are detrimental to African people and Black people, we have to stay healthy, we have to stay strong, we have to be able to fight. And so in order to do that, healing your body, you know, feeding it good foods, healing it with natural medicines, that is the way to go. That is the place to start. So here is a Herbal First Aid Kit here that is listed where you have some herbs for common first aid matters, whether it's burns, cuts, scrapes, if it's indigestion, if it's vomiting, nausea, things of that nature. So again, I won't go through this because I think I'll go ahead and take time to go through the homeopathic section. And then next week, we'll talk about essential oils and superfoods. But know that you can also, just like a natural medicine chest, you can have a first aid kit that you maybe travel with. I mentioned earlier, I always travel with certain things. I always travel with activated charcoal. I always travel with peppermint. I always travel with my natural pain relievers like the Valerian and white willow bark, metal sweet. I always travel with certain homeopathic remedies. Usually I'll take my 100 remedy kit. I have a box that has 100 single remedies of the homeopathy in it. But create your own first aid kit. You can keep it in your car, or there are certain things I also keep in my purse. I keep the flower remedy that I mentioned earlier, the Rescue Remedy 5, I keep in my purse. I usually keep colloidal silver in my purse. And I just find these little small little dropper bottles. Even though I carry a pretty big purse, that's not a good thing. So I'm certainly not advocating for that, because I also have a shoulder problem because of it. But I just had to condense the bottle sizes, right? So, you know, because there are certain things I just need to carry with me. And so some of these natural remedies are included. But if you can find maybe, you know, half an ounce or 1 ounce bottle to maybe carry in like a bag in your purse, or if you carry a book bag or a briefcase or what have you, whatever else we might go out of the house to do, whether it's work or run errands or whatever you're taking with you, take whatever you may need in the event of you're not feeling well, or in the event that you come across someone else that's not feeling well and you can offer some assistance. In addition to this natural healing thing, I'm very much into helping others. I sort of feel like if you're not here to be of service, I don't really know what the purpose is, or at least, let me not put that on you. My purpose is to make the world a better place and to be of service. And I feel like in any regard or in any way that you can do that, why wouldn't you? So there have been many times I maybe have offered something I had in my, oh, you need something? Okay, I got something to help with that, you know, so I'm good for that. So carry it for yourself, carry it for others. Another little handout here, again, I won't go over, but these are healing herbs and spices from your kitchen. So we know that a lot of the culinary herbs or cooking herbs will have an impact, a positive impact on the digestive system, right? And it makes perfect sense. We cook with it for flavor, but we also cook with it because it helps our food digest better, okay? So review those. And I have handouts here of some West African and some South African herbs, some herbs from India and some herbs from China. So I want to scroll through really quickly. And so we mentioned ginger. We know that this is found in many parts of the world. I think probably one of the favorites that I want to list that's in this African section is about African potato, which I think is native to, and of course worth mentioning. African potato, I think, is native to South Africa, but we know that it's, and Buchu is worth mentioning. They're all worth mentioning, but I'm gonna try to keep going and scroll on through here, else we'll never get through to the next session. But African potato, oh gosh, let's this is out of order, but we're going to get back to African potato. Here we are. So this one is a good herb, I think, to get familiar with and to have on hand. It's well known for boosting the immune system, and it's reputed as treating effectively cancer, tuberculosis, HIV and AIDS, asthma, and a host of other chronic, really serious conditions, right? So this is something I think that's worth mentioning and worth you looking into. If we scroll down to, I think the Chinese herbs are next. One of the highlights I would like to mention here, ginseng is very well known. I won't really spend a lot of time with that. Just know there are many different types of ginseng. So depending on what you're dealing with, it's a tonic herb, it's more so an adaptogen. So it kind of helps the body adjust to whatever illness and whatever repair is needed. So it's an excellent herb to have on hand. It's a matter of knowing which one is good. I think the one I want to mention here though is bupleurum. I think it's the last, yes. So bupleurum is an excellent Chinese herb. It's been around for a long time, traditionally used for like liver disease, arthritis, ulcers, mental disorders, but it has really good healing effects with the respiratory system. And so it kind of got highlighted, of course, with this coronavirus piece, because it can be really helpful for the flu, pneumonia, bronchitis, fever, things like that. And then of course, diarrhea and constipation. So it's also good for some digestive issues as well. So that's the Chinese herb I want to highlight. And I think the next section is on Indian herbs. So the Ayurvedic healing tradition out of India, they usually use these different body types to determine like what herbs, what foods, or what diets you should follow and that sort of thing. And so I think one of the more common excuse me, herbs that are used here is ashwagandha. Well, there's several, but I'll highlight here ashwagandha. So this is a herb of vitality. So it has anti-aging effects and helps, just be more vital. So a lot of us are overstressed, overworked. This is a good herb that just kind of helps you increase, your ability to function, move about the world. I would consider this like a tonic herb. So this is something that just kind of helps you keep doing what it is that you need to do on a day. When making a tincture or extract, some of the solvents or what we call menstruums that we use to immerse herbs in, common ones here are vinegar, and I didn't mention earlier, vegetable glycerin, and then alcohol. And India, they most often will use milk as a menstruum. So, the fat from the milk, they feel is a really good means of extracting the essence of an herb. And so they'll use milk. So you'll hear of, say, something called golden milk, for example, and it's turmeric and a little bit of ginger and black pepper that's added to a milk base. And if you're not doing whole milk, you can of course substitute that with, say, an almond milk or something of that nature, some kind of nut or plant milk. And you simmer it down, right? And you make this sort of really rich, thick, warm milk that's infused with turmeric, ginger, and black pepper. So they use milk a lot as an solvent, as a means of getting the essence of an herb out. I said that I would get into the homeopathics, but we didn't have time for that. So we will fit that in for next week. Pain is a big issue. So it's worth highlighting natural pain relievers or painkillers. Garlic is great. A lot of people use ear oils with garlic in it. It might be almond oil infused with some garlic. Clove is really good for teeth and gum issues. Apple cider vinegar we know is good for heartburn. Ginger is good for pain and inflammation. Also stomach upset, we know that. Pineapple is good for stomach bloating, for gas. We know that works because of the bromelain that's in the pineapple. So it has a natural digestive enzyme in that. Peppermint is good for sore muscles. Eucalyptus is another one I would probably put there for sore muscles. Turmeric is good for chronic pain. Cherries is good for pain. Usually inflammation like your arthritis, your gout, things of that nature, also good for headaches. Horseradish is good for sinus pains. It really opens up the nasal passages. Cayenne is good for that. Of course, you could do that in capsule form and add that to some other like sinus allergy herbs like nettle and things of that nature, but that helps open up the sinus passages. Excuse me. Blueberries, good for the bladder and urinary tract. And then of course, I waited last to mention water because water is just in general a good healing substance, period. But we know that it is good for injury recovery, it's good for pain, it's good for flushing the system and also flushing out things that the body no longer needs. So water is always going to be a good option when you are trying to heal the body. So I think I am out of time. Next week, we'll talk about homeopathy, essential oils, and superfoods. If you have questions, I didn't get to them. These 30 minutes go by too fast. I like to talk. So I think today I just talked a little bit too much. So if you have questions, feel free to email me those, or you can save them for next week. And as always, I thank you for listening in. Join us back next week. And as always, good health and peace to you.
All right, thank you so much, Nana Akua, for your wonderful lecture. I really appreciate it. For the handouts, for those who want some handouts, I did write the email address in the chat room. You can check it out. It's nanaakua1@gmail.com. You can request some PDF or handouts through that email. I thank you for joining the youth class, everyone. On next, we're going to have Pan-African history class with Dr. Tyrene Wright. Yes, Dr. Tyrene, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good, and you should see me in a second as well.
All right.
So welcome, everyone. Thank you for committing your Saturday to this process. I'm about to share my camera and share the new readings for this week on the Pan-African history and organizing. Last week, you should have, oh, I don't have much light. Okay. Last week, you should have read the chapter that I shared on Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanist. And that was the chapter where we visit the history of Pan-Africanism as it emerged in the world and essentially recalled the historical Pan-Africanists of the time. I think you guys can see me. Okay. So the Pan-Africanists of that time and period that emerged in the world and coined the phrase, Henry Sylvester Williams being one of them who coined the phrase Pan-Africanism. So I know I don't have good lighting today. Sorry about that. The light is out over here. Anyway, so I wanted to get to the next sharing, the next reading, which is also from this book. I was going to hold it up, but I'll wait. And it is the chapter on the African exclusion measure. Sorry, guys, I'm using something a little different to hold up my camera. So the second chapter is that we're going to read together is a chapter on Pan-Africanism in terms of U.S. foreign policy, where Washington debunks the African exclusion measure. So I'm going to be sharing that in the group. Let me give some context to the case. And I might even share my screen because this is, some people asked me about the book last time, and this is directly connected to the book. So the chapter is called the African Exclusion Measure. And when we start talking about Pan-Africanism and measuring Pan-Africanism, so the participants in this case, because this is actually a constituted case, the participants in this case are not yelling from the mountaintops that they're Pan-Africanists. It's one major player in this situation, but there are other key players also in this, but none of them are yelling, you know, I'm a Pan-Africanist. Why? Because it's something and measured. This is something that can be qualified through action. So it's really no reason to do that, right? I do know that part of why we're having this conversation is because there's some confusion about this in this day and age, because people have the label of Pan-Africanist, but the action that would be identifiably Pan-Africanist is totally left out of the conversation and probably non-existent, right? So once again, we'll start off where we ended. Pan-Africanism is not simply about calling yourself a Pan-Africanist. It's about actually doing something that is to the benefit of Black people, to the benefit of African people. That would qualify as Pan-Africanist. Okay, I can't find my mouse. But that being said, that is part of what this case is based on. It's all about the African exclusion measure and the fact that Booker T. Washington challenged and debunked US legislation that would have locked African people coming from anywhere in the world out of the United States forever. It also is one of the first times where you see it overtly stated in US policy that it seeks to put African people and Black people in the same category as criminals and undesirables attempting to enter the country. So that's also notable. I'm a little distracted because I'm trying to find my mouse to post certain things for you. Okay. Well, that being said, so the case is called the African Exclusion Measure. I'm about to post it now. And we're going to use it in the context of our discussion right now. And then you will be reading it yourself this week. So 1 second, you're not going to see me on camera, but I'm going to open up the document momentarily. So let me just, while I do that, let me give you the setting. The setting is 1914 to 1915. And this is a case, just so everybody knows, why is she talking about this? This is a case, a policy case, a historical case, where senators in the United States had the desire and the idea to create legislation to lock anybody of the Black or African race out of the United States forever, okay? This case looks at the historical facts and how this was dealt with, okay? In 1914, the Panama Canal was completed. And after it was completed, a senator from Missouri decided it would be a good idea to tell the laborers who worked on the Panama Canal to that they were unwelcome, okay, in terms of immigration. How did he do this? Well, legislators produced legislation, right? And so what he did, Senator James Reed, what he does is propose a measure to attach to the larger immigration bill. The Panama Canal was completed in November of 1914. This measure would be proposed on December 31st of 1914, the last day of the year. And who would this target? This would target, this legislation, anybody who lived outside of the United States who was Black and or identifiably African in any way. Why would they do such a thing? They would do such a thing, James Reed, because one, he was a racist. Two, the other reason was because the Panama Canal had been completed. The laborers on the canal were from the Caribbean, Central and South America, and they wanted to make sure that all those people laboring on the Panama Canal knew that thank you for your labor, but the United States is not interested and having you come here. That was why they did it. They wanted to send a clear message that on the issue of your labor, we appreciate your help. But on the issue of immigration, you are not welcome in the United States. And while this measure was directed, okay, you should see me sending it. All right, hold on. While this measure was directed at the Black and the African population of the Caribbean, Central and South America, it was unbelievably meant, it was precisely meant to lock out anyone who could come from Africa or who could come from anywhere in the world and being Black and or African in any way. And so I'm about to let you see me again, and then I'm gonna share my screen because you guys should see it in some of your groups. That being said, I'm gonna share the actual document in real time. So do you have permission to share?
Yes, you do.
Okay, thank you. So it was meant to lock out anyone from Africa or anyone who was Black coming from the United States. Point blank, period. So here is the case. Be able to see it. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can see that.
It says chapter 6, the African exclusion measure. Okay, so this is the story of this case and how it actually got defeated, because certainly, you know, it was defeated, but who defeated it? Who organized around it? Who from within the United States that was Black and or African said, you will not lock anyone who is like me out coming from anywhere in the world? Who was that? Well, that was none other than Booker T. Washington. So, I mean, it's a hot topic now. It wasn't always a hot topic, but that being the case, he is that person who challenged this US legislation and said that, you know, you're not going to lock from anywhere throughout the African world. Not only that, attached to this immigration amendment and then the larger immigration bill was a certain clause, meaning that not only did this apply to people who were Black and or African, but it put those attempting to immigrate in the same category as undesirables and criminals. So the Blackness was vilified, the African culture was vilified and put in the same category as undesirables or criminals attempting to enter the United States, okay? And this is one of the cases where you can see this explicitly, because what you will read in this, the readings this week are the specifics of how that happened and how it was defeated. I'm sorry, y'all see my screen, so you see everything that's popping up in WhatsApp. So let's start out. Through your paper, and this is Booker T. Washington. He is the person who, in fact, defeats this measure, challenges it, and it's why we can call someone who's generally not known as a Pan-Africanist a Pan-Africanist, primarily because of the simple fact that he challenged this particular piece of legislation. Okay? So through your newspaper, I decided to appeal to the American Congress and to the people of the United States in favor of fair play and justice in connection with the immigration bill now pending before the United States Senate, which by amendment excludes from coming into this country any person of African descent. Okay, and so he attempts to address this in the public press, Booker T. Washington. At the time, he has significant control of the Black press, and he felt like it was important to address this unfair and racist measure that was being proposed in the Senate And unfortunately, as he writes this, let's see. Okay, the date isn't there, but this comes from his personal papers that he wrote this, right? And the date that he writes this, he probably was unaware that it would pass in the Senate very quickly. So just to give you some of the details, he's talking about this measure that's in front of the Senate. But what he probably doesn't know is that within days of writing this unfair and racist measure would be approved, proposed and approved in the US Senate and be scheduled to go to the House of Representatives. That's where this story sort of begins. He is going to challenge this measure as it comes up before the House of Representatives. And so you have the case, you have the background, the Panama Canal, what it was, who labored on it, the context and conditions on it, which were both harsh, context very racist, an American endeavor, conditions very harsh. And so this is Senator James Reed. No, hold on. Senator Williams from Mississippi. Okay. He's talking about the immigrants that would come from the Caribbean. And this should, make your ears perk up, because there's some myths in this country about white people's preference for one Black people, one Black ethnicity over another, and that's simply not true. So if you were ever wondering what they're truly thinking about our African brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, here's a peep into it on the floor of the House of Representatives as they debate African immigration. So we are beginning to receive now some undesirable immigration of the African race from the West Indies. A great many Jamaican Negroes have been employed upon the Panama Canal. And after the termination of that work, having become accustomed to American wages, which they received down in Panama, a great many more of them begin to come to the Gulf ports. Florida and Louisiana have already received a considerable proportion of African immigration from the French and English West Indies. That is to say, immigration of West Indians who are wholly or partly African in race. Okay? So the US government, this is a senator from Mississippi who stated this about the immigration as it comes up before the Congress and before they actually debate. And they're telling you what to them the people are, right? Who are wholly or partly African in race. Okay, so please don't think that they think that African people from the Caribbean are something other than African. They do not. They know that we're Black. We know that you're African culturally, and they identify such in U.S. legislation. That being the case, Booker T. Washington was watching all of this as it was about to come up before the Congress, and so he writes a letter into a couple of Black newspapers, and he makes this issue known. So this little part right here features a commentary about the article. The article was published in the New York World on January 2nd, 1915, under the title Fair Pay for Negro Aliens. Now, that's harsh, but it was the language of the time, right? Booker T. Washington argued that the amendment was in fact unnecessary and a slight to the masses of African Americans residing in the U.S. in the Southern U.S. The article began with an appeal to Congress and American citizens. Through your newspaper, I desire to appeal to the American Congress and to the people of the United States in favor of fair play and justice in connection with the immigration bill now pending before the United States Senate, which by amendment excludes from coming into this country any person of African descent. So that's the same quote that's above. But he goes on and he basically, in the main communication mode of the day, he goes on to bring attention in the Black press to this unfair and unjust legislation about to go to Congress, okay? His words would make it to the floor of the House of Representatives in the week that this would come before Congress, from January 1st to January 7th. of 1915. So you know about one of the things he would do, which is challenge this amendment in the press. But one of the other things that he would do was organize what he would call the Tuskegee Machine. And the Tuskegee Machine would, in essence, go to DC, and the Tuskegee Machine was a group of lieutenants, a secret network, and they would go to Washington, DC, hold up Congress in order for Congress to be polled on the issue of the African exclusion measure, this immigration bill. Okay. What will happen in that session, and a lot of it, I'm just scrolling through the case so you can see it here. A lot of it is detailed in the congressional record, and I corroborate the case with the congressional record, and you get major points here, right? But what you don't see is the fact that Washington's lieutenants in the Tuskegee Machine, they would go there, they would hold up the Senate by having them polled, which means that every congressman needed to state their intentions on the legislation, how they were going to vote. And this allowed many to directly lobby those congressmen in favor of throwing out the African exclusion measure, or the 19th Amendment to the larger immigration bill, which is actually what it was, right? This is done effectively within the 1 week. There is communication back and forth between Booker T. Washington and his lieutenants on the Tuskegee Machine. Ultimately, the measure is defeated, and there is a ferocious debate in the Congress around African immigration. But Washington infiltrates the situation as much as possible. He's able to have his lieutenant have an impact on how congressmen will vote. His words would make it to the floor of the House in terms of arguing in favor of African immigration. But also, he admits at the end, had all his efforts failed, he would have gone to the very racist Woodrow Wilson and demanded that this unfair and racist measure be thrown out. Okay. And who would this have impacted? This would have impacted any African person or Black person attempting to come into the United States from 1915 on. Therefore, the very next year, Marcus Garvey would not have been able to immigrate into the United States and come to Tuskegee under invitation of Washington, who by then had ironically passed away. So this measure's defeat takes place in January of 1915. Come to the United States in March of 1916. But Booker T. Washington would die in November of the same year that he defeated this measure, November 15, 1915. But Marcus Garvey would come to Tuskegee anyway, under the invitation of the deceased Washington. He would have a chance to see this magnificent place where Washington theorized that independence, that industry was the way to independence. If you read all of the last chapter, Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism, Pan-Africanists, you would know that they have a relationship. They are communicating. Washington, to some extent, is mentoring Garvey, and Garvey models the Universal Negro Improvement Association after the Tuskegee model, which has 44 sustainable industries there at the institution. Okay, so I'm going to end it there. You're going to read the details on your own. At the end of the day, what is Pan-Africanism about? It's about giving us something that we can actually feel, that is tangible, loving African people and Black people through action. So in other words, what happens? What are we left with at the end of this case? We are left with a reality where we are still able to have African people and Black people globally come into the United States, be it for education or work or to organize, because we have many organizations at that time. Whatever the reason, we leveraged our power and Black people to the benefit of African and Black people internationally. There would have been no Malcolm. His mother would not have come from the Caribbean. There would not have been your Barack Obama, if you care. And so many others who there wouldn't have been an Nkrumah in the way that he was, because he would not have been allowed in the United States to go to school at Lincoln University and then at Penn. They wouldn't have been a Nnamdi Ezekwe. So many others would not have been allowed into the United States to engage us in struggle and transformation and our continuous struggle, right, around the world. So many people, right? So this is what the struggle was, but it also is a model of how we have to advocate. Should any Western nation be able to say, no Black people or African people can come into this country, and the African and Black people within not take a position and not engage in struggle and not defend the rights of other African people to move freely around the world and within and outside any particular nation's borders, right? So what we get from here is the continued relationship and freedom of movement, along with the freedom to access resources. And sure, it was the African population here who established so many things, right? Equal protection under the law, voting rights, all of the freedoms that one knows that we have struggled for. But why can't we share them with the rest of the world? You guys are seeing right now what's happening. Ukraine. White Americans are about to be able to allow Ukrainians, are being allowed to open their homes up to Ukrainians who lacks the asylum, refugee, and immigration laws for Ukrainians. And who will they seek refuge with? White Americans here. If they're allowed to do it, why can't we do it? There's no group of people here who've struggled more for the security and the welfare and the human integrity and dignity of African people than African people within the United States. And so we can have other Africans come here. It certainly, had this measure been passed in the Congress, it passed in the Senate, had it passed in the Congress, our communities would have looked very different, okay? We would not have the ethnic diversity that we do have. And nobody who is from the Caribbean, Central, South America, or the African continent would have come and come together with some African people in the United States and produce certain people, right? So I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna do a quick Q&A if you have any questions about the case. I'm gonna stop the share. I think I should be able to stop the share. Okay. And let me just make sure that you actually can see the readings in the WhatsApp group. So let me just make sure. So I attempted to share. Okay. All right. Did it go through? And you can write some questions about this case in the chat if you like. Okay. Okay, good. It went into most of them. It went into 17E. Hold on. Went to 17E, so you guys have it. 17A. Okay, 17F. I'm resending it because it got caught. Okay. send again. All right, so 17F, you should see it right now. 17D, I'm resending it. And it's a short case, so you're not bogged down with reading a long case. But it is something that you should know and you need to know. Okay, 17C, do you all have it? Okay, no, 17C doesn't have it. So let me. All right, so I'm gonna put it in 17C. Anyway, any questions about the case? Let's see. No. All right. I accidentally sent it again to other groups, but 17C, you should have it. Okay, so let me look at some of your questions. If you have any, chat. I think that you may have, but please post this. Yeah, so I just posted it. It's in the groups. If you're actually in the groups, you will see it. Chris Emmanuel. We know Sandra Grant died due to the crime of imperialism in Africa, but Thomas and Carla in Africa died from the police. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. What is this? Senko. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Okay. Can I help with hello, Senko? All right, so I think these are questions that look like questions for Nana Akua. So nobody seems like they have any questions for me. Yes, so I posted the actual case that we're reading. So you all should have it as of now. And enjoy it. We'll talk a little bit about it. It's a very quick and fast reading, so you shouldn't have any problem with it. And it answers some questions about, you know, why the demographic in the United States is what it is, and who actually was instrumental in that. Now, this is, just so people know, this is the reason why I would call and do call Booker T. Washington a Pan-Africanist once again. Because although there were others who were aligned with him against this measure, few were able to have the measure thrown out and eliminated. Okay, no one was able to throw it out and eliminate it. All right, and that's an important fact. Only Washington had some measure of soft power where he could influence US politicians, and not in a passive way, right? With a very aggressive way. You have to read the case. There is another version of this book coming out this summer where I go even deeper into the details of the case, so you can see how the debate and argument on the floor of the House around this measure play out. But this one is sufficient that you will have this particular version of the case, where Washington and others organize and challenge those legislators. Okay, and I give you names. It's very specific. It's not arbitrary. You will see how it's actually done. Why is this important? It gives us some strategy and tactics for how to deal with stuff like this. How do we challenge the United States when it has the nerve to, you know, open the door to Ukraine, but then have a travel ban to somewhere like Nigeria? How do we respond internally, Caribbean, when they have their doors open to Ukraine and are swearing to give them $40 billion, but they turn African people from Haiti away at the border and chase them on horseback? How do we leverage our power from within so that that does not happen? This is real deep. So when people are talking about, you know, who is a Pan-Africanist and who is not, one way to weigh and measure these things is through action. You can have Pan-African sentiment, but if you're unable to produce anything for African people that they need, then you are not that, right? Or you aspire to be that. You know, so this is action, right? This story, this particular case is about action. How to determine what is Pan-Africanist in action. We know many people have words that seem like they're Pan-African in nature, but we're talking about measurable results in loving African people with action, okay? I'm gonna leave it there because I'm already over by 5 minutes. I appreciate your time. Enjoy the case. It's very interesting, but short and right to the point, and we'll be discussing it, okay? One of the things I'm going to ask you during the course of the week is to name somebody that you know or that is a historical figure that this case impacted, right? Like, would it have stopped their movement in and about and around, into and outside of the United States and an African community here? So yeah, we'll apply. We'll talk about application during the course of the week, okay? All right, I'm done. For joining us. Enjoy, like I said, the reading. This is a very interesting case, and I think it's one of the best ways to exhibit what we're talking about here. Okay. I think that's it. I don't think there's any more questions. I am because we are, and please stay safe.
I am because thank you so much, Dr. Taryn Wright, for a great lecture. We learned a lot.
Thank you.
All right, and also those who were with us during this Pan-African history class, thank you. Join us next week again. Dr. Taryn Wright will teach us more about the Pan-African history. We appreciate you. We love you. I am because we are Ubuntu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.